Welcome to the Ventaire Scope Drying and Tracking Cabinet in-service video. We will guide you through the essential features, proper setup, and best practices for using your Ventaire cabinet. Whether you're new to the system or need a quick refresher, let's begin by identifying if your cabinet has a barcode scanner. Let's get started. To access the system, start by tapping the Home status screen. If your cabinet has a security feature, enter your PIN when prompted, or, if available, scan your ID badge using the barcode scanner. The Home status screen uses color and arrows to track the drying process. Open indicates which slots are available to dry a scope. Green with down arrow, the scope has been dried and is ready for use. Ready is displayed under the slot icon with a timer showing the time left until the scope expires. The scope will go through a venting process once all scopes have been dried. Venting will be displayed above the slot icon. Yellow with upward arrow, the scope is being dried. Drying is displayed under the slot icon with a timer showing the drying time remaining. Red with 3 X's, the scope has expired and will need to be removed and reprocessed. Expired is displayed under the slot icon with a timer showing how long the scope has been expired. To connect a scope, start by hanging it in the cabinet. Then connect the scope to the tubing. Next, select Check In on the screen to complete the process. Here is one example of connecting a scope. Hang the scope. Attach the connector to the manifold tube. Then insert the connector into the suction and air water valve ports next to the control knobs on the scope. Attach the lure coupler to the manifold auxiliary water tube and then screw the coupler to the water jet port of the scope. If a scope does not have a water jet port, you won't need to use the coupler when connecting it. Finally, slide the cover onto the biopsy valve. Here's a tip on connecting when you're installing the biopsy cover. Make sure the open end is facing down. Here's another tip. Install the manifold water auxiliary tube by turning the lure connector, not the tube, to prevent the tube from unwinding and coming off. Select an open slot in the cabinet. Select Plus to assign that slot. Scan the scope barcode or select the scope serial number from the list and select Next. If you've already logged into the system, skip this step. Select your name from the list or enter your name if new to the system and select Next. Enter required information. Review the scope information. If correct, select Confirm. Check scope connections and then select Start Drying Process or scan the tubing again to begin drying. Scopes will dry one at a time and in the order they were checked in. To check out the scope, select the scope slot icon or scan the scope barcode and then check out. If you've already logged into the system, skip this step. Select your name from the list or enter your name if new to the system and select Next. Enter any required information. Review scope information, then select Confirm or scan barcode on tubing to confirm you are checking out the correct scope. The Remove prompt will display for 2 minutes. To remove the scope from the cabinet, disconnect the connector from the scope and then remove the connector from the manifold tube. The connector can now be thrown out. The manifold tube should remain in the cabinet. Remove the scope from the cabinet by lifting it off the scope manager. The system continuously pushes air through the channels at set intervals. The drying process takes priority over the venting process. If you add a new scope and start the drying process, venting will resume only after all drying cycles are complete. Once a scope has expired, the drying slot turns red. The scope needs to be removed from the cabinet and reprocessed. Scope hang time is set by the facility admin or by default set to 7 days. To remove the scope for reprocessing, follow the checking out a scope process.